Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bridges. Buckner. Buckner. Cook. Corum. Danielson. Donovan. Finberg. Fields. Gardner. Gardner.
Absent.
Janot. Gonzalez. Hanson. Heisey. Holbert. Hawkins Lewis. Kirkmeyer. Colker. Lee. Liston. Lundeen. Moreno. Patterson. Patterson. Priola. Rankin. Rodriguez. Scott. Simpson. Smallwood. Sonnenberg. Story. Story. Winter. Woodward. Zenzinger. Gardner. Coleman. Right. No, I'm talking about Gardner. Okay. Okay. Gardner. Mr. President.
Here. With 35 present, 0 absent, and 0 excused, we have a quorum. Would the good senator from Senate District 10 please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Simpson.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 be dispensed with and that the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 31st, correctly printed Senate Bills 201, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 124, 151, 162, 171, correctly re-engrossed Senate Bills 133, 142, 147, 152, and 160, correctly re-revised House Bills 1054 and 1075, correctly enrolled Senate Bills 76 and 73.
Committee reports.
March 30th, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1072 be referred to the committee whole, a favorable recommendation. March 30th, Committee on Transportation and Energy. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 103 be amended as follows. So amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. March 30th, Committee on Finance. After consideration of the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 85 be amended as follows. And as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation.
Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the bills, the titles to the bills listed on the consent calendar?
Senate Bill 162 by Senators Gardner, Representative Snyder, and Soper concerning spendthrift provisions in trust pursuant to the Colorado Uniform Trust Code. Senate Bill 171 by Senators Gardner and Representatives Snyder and Soper concerning the Uniform Fiduciary Income and Principal Act.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on the third reading of the bills consent calendar, which includes Senate Bills 162 and 171.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the bills listed on the third reading of bills consent calendar? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 162 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Colker, Cook, Minority Leader, Woodward, Liston. Co-sponsors, 162. Please add the president. With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 171 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Minority Leader. Smallwood, Cook, Woodward, third reading of bill's final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 124?
Senate Bill 124 by Senator Lee and Representative Wiseman concerning the creation of a Class 2 felony offense when the death of a person is caused by a participant without deliberation in the course of the commission of the specified felony offenses.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 124 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. Sorry to be a little late getting to the podium. I want to take this opportunity to advance my remarks as relates to Senate Bill 123. Is it 124? 3 or 4? 4. Thank you. As relates to the rights of victims. Because what's going on right now, we're trying to change the narrative as it relates to the intent of murder. We're trying to change the narrative of the intent of murder. The narrative is that you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. You're sitting in the back seat of a car, and you're seeing a long gun behind the driver's seat, and you're seeing a handgun in the passenger seat. And you were at the wrong place at the wrong time, not knowing what was going to go down. We're trying to change the narrative as it relates to the intent of murder. What about the victim? Was the victim at the wrong place at the wrong time? What is their narrative? Members, we need to be really clear in purpose about what we're trying to say about the intent to kill. We're seeing an increase of crime in the state of Colorado. And we want to give everyone a script. Have you talked to your DAs? Have you talked to your police chiefs? I have. We do not need to redefine the intent of murder. I don't have the bill in front of me, but in looking at it last night, do you know the cost they're putting on murder? Have you looked at this? They're saying, through the analysis, that they're going to save a cost what is it, 46,000 to, 46,000, I'm reading here on page 3. The cost to incarcerate a person in the prison is $46,738 for an offender per year. The cost to parole is $5,179 per offender. What value are you putting on life? Because you were at the wrong place at the wrong time? You want to save $46,000 and some change? Do you know that when you're a victim of crime, how devastating it is? Your life is disrupted. And you want the state to save $46,000 and then some more money as it relates to probation. Really? Is that the value you put on somebody's life? We're spending millions down here on all kinds of things. Millions. But when it comes to murder, you want to redefine that at the value of $46,000? My son's life was worth more than that. You going for a joyride? I don't know. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And I'm going to have to suspend my comments because I'm having health issues. So I need to excuse myself.
Further discussion. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. So I didn't talk about this yesterday because I didn't feel we needed to. But what you've just heard is the voice of a victim. Not some random email you receive that came from a different state, not one of your constituents. Colleagues, what we heard is a friend of ours, a colleague of ours, somebody that we know and love, explaining what it's like to be a victim and how this bill, if passed, makes victims feel and the families of victims feel. And this is our chance to do something about it. I love the questions. Have you talked to police chiefs? Have you talked to your sheriffs? Have you heard from your DA? I have. Specifically at this time, colleagues, when what we're hearing from citizens of our state is that, guess what? They don't really feel safe right now. And what are we doing to help them feel safer? I don't think this is going to help with that. And the emails that I'm getting and the voicemails that I'm getting reflect that pretty clearly. My hope is that many of you have not decided completely where you're at on this bill and that you'll maybe reconsider. That you'll do the right thing for the victims and the families of victims in our state and vote no on this. And I hope the media is paying attention, because I certainly hope that they're not even thinking about broadcasting what I'm saying right now, because what they've got is testimony from victims and families of victims. And that should be what is broadcast across our state today, that we're trying to do this. So I'd ask for a no vote on Senate Bill 124. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Sharon Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, colleagues, there is no way that anything I might say or my colleague from Douglas County might say that would equal the plea of our colleague from Arapahoe County. I have been distressed, and I don't use that word lightly, for the past few sessions, in that we have put the concern for fairness for criminals ahead of that of crime victims. Criminal laws and criminal penalties exist for a whole variety of purposes, and I and the sponsor of this bill have been in this well and in our sister chamber debating all of those purposes across the board. And you can make the case for a higher or lower sentencing by which one of those you believe in. And there are emotional pleas and there are policy pleas. The felony murder rule has existed and has existed in our law for some time, and it has existed for a purpose. And a major one has been for the deterrence of crime. And you'd say, well, it's not working very well. Well, it's not working very well because the courts are closed. Not literally closed, but our courts, our correction system, our county jails have all, because of the pandemic, operated under extraordinary circumstances of choosing for the good of those incarcerated a more liberal policy of release. And because gathering 12 people in a small room to debate with each other about whether someone is guilty or not guilty has not been something that we want to do. What's the result of that? Well, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation released its numbers for 2020 recently. And while you and I were at home, you and I were not on the roads, you and I were not going to the grocery store as frequently as we might, crime spiked in Colorado in every major category, particularly in violent and property crimes. About one more person was killed every week in this state in 2020 than in the previous year. That's just a statistic when I say it. When our colleague from Arapahoe County speaks about it, it cuts me to my core. Because when I say out loud, about one more person, well, that's pretty dry. But when someone says that was my son, my daughter, my husband, wife, brother, sister, every one of those is one more. The felony murder rule and its sentence is intended to deter violent crime and felonious crime, and it has been an important tool. As our colleague from Arapahoe County talks about the wrong place, wrong time, for those charged with felony murder, they chose to participate in a felony. They chose to participate in a felony. And then, really, it turns out that that person who was murdered was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Members, I doubt very much that this bill will be defeated on third reading. I'll be a no vote. My district attorney is absolutely adamant that this is important. It's important for deterrence of crime. It's important for punishment of crime. I just ask you, however you vote, because I will, even though I vote no, every time I pick up one more newspaper article about violent crime, about murder in Colorado, about someone who was behind the counter late one night, who was shot and killed, someone on a street corner, or a group of, as happened in El Paso County 2 or 3 years ago, a group of young gang members took out a young woman and her boyfriend. The boyfriend was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He didn't even know anything about what they were going to do. And there's a murder trial going on even today about this by someone who said, well, I'm not saying who pulled the trigger, they are, but I didn't pull the trigger. I was just with everybody. Members, this is the wrong policy for the time in which we live. Wrong place, wrong time. I ask for another.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a senatorial 5.
Senate will stand in a senatorial 5. That will return from senatorial 5. Having no further discussion, is there further discussion? Sarah Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a final comment. And my comment is that murder is not accidental. Murder is not accidental. Murder is relevant. And what we have in this bill, Senate Bill 124, is we're trying to redefine the narrative as it relates to murder. Murder is relevant. And it's not accidental. You could be a convenience store worker. You could be a bank teller. Murder is relevant and it's not accidental. I'm asking you to vote no on Senate Bill 124.
Having no further discussion on Senate Bill 124, Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm reluctant to even come back up to the mic to talk about this bill. I can't imagine the unspeakable, indescribable sorrow that our colleague has gone through with her personal experience. And my heart goes out to her. My empathy goes out to her. And my friendship continues with her over 11 years. The defendants who engaged in this unspeakable act against our colleague were convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, not felony murder. Felony murder is a subspecies of first-degree murder, and it occurs when there is no intent. When I say wrong place at wrong time, that may be an inartful, shortcut way to kind of describe what has happened in many cases in felony murder. But the people who testified at the Judiciary Committee hearing on this bill were people who were literally along for the ride, not intending to commit murder, not intending to kill, not expecting someone else would engage in the act, but they were people who were along to commit a felony. And that's the basis of the charge for felony murder, that they were engaged in an inappropriate act, an illegal act, a felony, and a person died in the course of it. They didn't intend it, they didn't expect it, they didn't participate in it, other than they were committing a felony. To suggest that the existence of felony murder in the Colorado Revised Statutes serves as a deterrent to murder is fallacious and inconsistent with the testimony of people who have been convicted of felony murder. It's inconsistent with jurors, one of whom testified, who didn't know that person would get life in prison for being convicted. People don't know the murder is going to occur, but they are convicted anyway under this subspecies, this I would suggest, archaic version of murder that came into our statutes from the English common law in the 17 and 1800s. It's not a deterrent, and we're not redefining first-degree murder, which is what was being described from the podium. First-degree murder is premeditated, malice aforethought. Felony murder is an unusual, different type of murder arising under circumstances of committing a felony, not intending to commit murder. When I spoke from the mic the other day, I talked about the importance in our American judicial system of having punishment proportional to the culpability and proportional to the views of the person who is committing the act. And that's what felony murder under the recodification will do. It'll give a judge the discretion to sentence a person from 16 to 48 years based upon their culpability. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, a 48-year sentence in the Department of Corrections is tantamount to a death sentence. It's certainly a life in prison sentence. People don't live in the Department of Corrections for 48 years. But it also gives the discretion to the judge under this recodification of felony murder to F2 to sentence the less culpable person, the person who legitimately didn't know that this offense was going to be murder, to be sentenced to 16 to 20 to 25 years, something less than life without parole. We want to empower the judges to sentence proportionate to culpability, and that's what this recodification of the felony murder rule does. So I ask for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Having no further discussion on Senate Bill 124, are there any no votes on Senate Bill 124? Senators Fields, Lundin, Scott, Gardner, Simpson, Liston, Kirkmeyer, Heisey, Sonnenberg, Quorum, Woodward, Smallwood, Rankin, with 22 aye votes, 13 no votes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 124 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Moreno, Gonzalez, Hawkes Lewis, Rodriguez, Story, Hansen, will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 151?
Senate Bill 151 by Senators Buckner and Rankin and Representatives Young and Rich concerning transparency in reading programs implemented in public schools.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 151 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion on Senate Bill 151? Seeing none, the motion is the passage. Senator Rankin.
I can't resist an opportunity to talk about reading. This bill is a follow-on to previous reading bills. In 19, those of us who were here then, voted unanimously for a bill we call the READ Act. And it's been tremendously successful. And this is a follow-on. Today, part of that required the Department of Education to come up with a program online to train teachers in the science, and it really is a science, of how to teach kids to read. And since that time, 12,800 teachers have signed up to take that course. The momentum is there to get more than 40% of our kids to be able to read at grade level at third grade. So what this bill does is parents who've gotten excited about it have said, we want to know what the curriculum is in our local school. So this simply says that the school will put up on their website or on the state's website the curriculum that they're teaching to show that we're actually evolving to real scientific reading. So thank you for a yes vote.
Senator Buckner.
And Mr. President, I cannot resist saying something. I was absolutely thrilled to have Senator Rankin co-prime this bill with me because of his passion for reading and my passion to help all students read before they leave third grade. So I'm asking for a yes vote as well.
Having no further discussion on Senate Bill 151, are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 151 is passed. Co-sponsors, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Zenzinger, Simpson, Kirkmeyer, Danielson, Scott, Winter, Janal, Sonnenberg, Lundeen, Story, Hawkes Lewis, Pedersen, Liston, Heisey, Woodward, Smallwood, the Majority Leader. Please have the President. General Order, second reading of bills. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole for consideration of General Order's second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of General Order, second reading of bills, and Senator Moreno will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Mr. Panetta, will you please read the title of the Senate Bill 177? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 177 lay over until April 5th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 177 to April 5th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Panetta, please read the title of the Senate Bill 143.
Senate Bill 143 by Senators Gardner, Representative Tipper, and Snyder concerning the Uniform Collaborative Law Act.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 143 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate Bill 143 is the Uniform Collaborative Law Act. As introduced, it would have allowed the application of the collaborative law principles across the board in all areas of legal dispute. It is kind of a pioneer area, hence many states that have enacted this uniform law, I shouldn't say many, but there were two options that came from the Uniform Law Commission. One was to confine it to family law, and the other was the broader context, which was the way it was introduced. What the Judiciary Committee did at the request of the Bar Association is to limit this to family law issues, and that is the amendment the Judiciary Committee added. And it makes a major change to the bill, which is why I'm speaking to it. And I ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Panetta, will you please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 to Senator
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move L002.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, collaborative law is an agreement between the parties, and as we just adopted the committee report, it is in the family law context, in which the attorneys on both sides, along with their clients, agree that rather than engaging in a straight-up adversarial process, that they will, as parties, collaborate to resolve their differences, say, in a marriage dissolution matter, child custody matters, and so forth. I think many in the family law bar already try to pursue this kind of work, but what the Uniform Collaborative Law Act does is gives this approach protection, imprimatur, and approval within our statutes of a way to approach family law issues. The amendment, which is being done at the request again of the Bar Association, addresses some of the questions of legal privilege and so forth, because as I've just described to you, collaborative law is something of a departure from the zealous advocacy and adversarial approach that we normally know. So I ask for an aye vote on L002.
Is there further discussion on L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 143? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 143. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Panetta, will you please? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 61 lay over until tomorrow, April 1st. And that's no joke.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 61 to tomorrow, April 1st. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over at the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Panetta, will you? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 114. I move Senate Bill 114 be referred to the Education Committee.
Mr. Panetta, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 114?
Senate Bill 114 by Senator Kirkmeyer concerning the establishment of a minimum setback requirement from existing land gas facilities for new public school building sites.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 114 be referred to the Education Committee.
The motion is to refer Senate Bill 114 to the Education Committee. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would respectfully ask for a no vote on this motion. This bill went to the Transportation and Energy Committee and was heard there and appropriately sent to the floor. And so I would ask that you vote no on this motion.
Is there further discussion on the motion to refer Senate Bill 114? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess somewhat caught off guard. Certainly recognize the authority of the Majority Leader to make such a motion. Just wonder if we might understand why the bill has come to the floor. It seems to have gone through the process and was unaware that there might be some reconsideration. Certainly the votes are there if this is a bill that the majority does not want to see proceed. That could happen here. I just wonder if there might be some understanding achieved, maybe a senatorial 5, or maybe the Majority Leader could explain that.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to explain a little further. So this is a bill, my understanding, was sent to the Transportation and Energy Committee as it relates to oil and gas facilities. There was a discussion there. There was an amendment put on, came out of committee, and I think there has been a lot of consternation from education advocates and school districts about what the implications would be. So in talking with the sponsor this morning, I discussed my interest in sending it back to a committee to have that part of the discussion, and we discussed that Education Committee would probably be the most appropriate. I'm not putting words in the sponsor's mouth. I assume she would prefer this not get sent back to any committee, but we did discuss if it's going to be sent back to a committee, what would be the preference, what would be the most appropriate one, considering the interest and anxiety from school districts and school advocates about the implications of this bill. I figured Education Committee, which the sponsor sits on, would be most appropriate to have that discussion. There is obviously a local government component because it is about zoning and planning and the like, but it seems to me like it's most appropriate for this to go to Education Committee to have that conversation, because the previous committee conversation probably was not the venue for the education advocates to be aware of and to show up and to sort of be a part of that conversation.
Further discussion? Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I happen to serve on the Transportation Committee, and we heard this bill, and we had lots of testimony. I heard concern from the environmental community about this setback and what was wrong with the bill. So, taking that into consideration, I asked the question. I believe they were the Sierra Club representative, maybe representing 31 environmental groups. If this were changed, would you support the bill? Yes. So those amendments were added. And it's frustrating to me that we can take something, because we talked about the safety of children. I cannot believe a school district would come back and say, well, you know, as is, we can set that new school within 150 feet of an oil and gas facility, and that's what we prefer. I don't believe that. I honestly do not believe that. If a setback is good for any other business, and schools don't have to go through the regulatory process with the counties that other businesses do, where is the fairness of saying a school district whose obligation is to protect the children can say, nah, we don't like that. These kids can, you know, they'll learn a lot from that oil and gas facility that's as much as 150 feet away. I understand the process. And I understand when bills are assigned, and that is the majority's right. And I understand it is the right of the majority to change this. But my question is this good policy? We had a hearing. If the school districts failed to come in and give their opinion on it, shame on them. I don't think they deserve a second bite of the apple. I ask for no.
Colleagues, I'll just remind you, the motion under consideration is referring Senate Bill 114 to the Education Committee. I would encourage you to not stray into the substance of the bill. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I very much appreciate that admonition and reminder from the chair. I recall not so long ago, and as I get older, my memory is not as good as it used to be, but I'm capable of thinking back 2 or 3 weeks and remembering, that a member of this chamber came to the well and stood in this very spot and said, Mr. Chair, I move that we refer such and such bill from the Committee of the Whole back to
the Judiciary Committee. And folks over here came down and said, why are you disrespecting the Health and Human Services Committee? We did great work. Your motion disrespects the work that we did and the full and complete hearing that we had. So let me ask you, why are you disrespecting the Transportation and Energy Committee and all of the fine work they did and the full and complete hearing that they had? Or were those arguments just cynical, self-serving? I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember who made them. I don't know why. But it seems to me that a little consistency on this would be appropriate. This bill was fully heard in a committee of reference. It was a committee of reference to which the leadership of the majority party and of this chamber chose to assign it. It was noticed. The hearing was held. In fact, the issues that one says it needs to now go to the Education Committee were addressed and discussed. It'll have a trip over to the House. It'll have another hearing over there. They may assign it to education. They may assign it to local government. They may assign it to, who knows, up to the Speaker. But the idea that one can say, oh, no, we need to have one more committee of reference. Members, vote no. Have a little consistency, for heaven's sakes.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I would urge a no vote on the motion. The first reason is out of the respect of the president. I trust the president's appointment, his assignment to this bill to the committee of reference that he had sent it to. I haven't always agreed with some of those assignments, but the president made a decision, sent this to a committee. The committee heard the evidence, heard the testimony, and came out with a decision. We don't do this very often. If there's a compelling reason to do so, I understand. But because you don't like the committee's decision is not a compelling reason to send it to another committee. It's time to have this discussion here, and out of respect for the president and his assignment originally, I ask for a no vote on this new assignment.
Further discussion? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This whole situation is a little curious to me. This is a bill that went to a committee. It very clearly could have gone to several committees. An amendment was put on that, my understanding, has implications that are very significant for public school, for education in the state of Colorado. To me, the responsible thing is, okay, there's an amendment. Not totally, there's a disagreement on exactly what it's going to do. Perhaps there needs to be more discussion. Maybe there's a path forward, maybe not, but let's talk about it with the education advocates that are the ones that are jumping up and down saying they're very concerned now. So let's have that discussion in the Education Committee. I'm fine not doing that if folks are upset about that. So, Mr. Chair, I withdraw my motion. And if we would like to take this bill to a vote, That's fine. Let's do that. I don't think people are prepared to support this bill. So do we want to give it more time to see if that there is a path forward? Or do we want to just force it and have a conversation and probably have the bill not pass? Those are the options. So for now, Mr. Chair, I think there is maybe a request for a senatorial 5, so I will request that so we can discuss this just a little bit more before we make any formal action.
The committee will observe a senatorial 5. The committee will return to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There has been a request by the sponsor for a birthday present, and so I, of course, want to respect that request. I move Senate Bill 114 lay over to the good senator from Weld County's birthday, which is September 15th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 114 to September 15th. Senator Crookmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Members, I'm going to ask you to vote no. Because here's the thing. We all know what's going on here. This bill deserves to have its hearing. This bill deserves to be heard by the members of this Senate. This bill simply says we are going to work to ensure that students and educators are protected. In 2017, there was a House Bill 1256, that would have required oil and gas facilities to be set back 1,000 feet away from schools, including their playgrounds and ball fields. In 2018, 1352 essentially was the same thing. Not only did many members, Democrat members that are in this House today, vote to support that, but the Colorado PTA voted to support that. The League of Oil and Gas Impacted Coloradoans, Conservation Colorado, the Western Colorado Alliance, several other people, stating that it was common sense regulation closing a loophole in order to protect children. This bill does the same thing. It closes a loophole because public schools do not have to go through a local land use process and do not have to be set back from oil and gas facilities. There is no requirement of setback, yet there is a requirement of new oil and gas facilities that have to be set back from schools by the COGCC, and it's 2,000 feet. And I will say that testifying on behalf of school setbacks was the Colorado Association of School Boards, who argued that it's important to protect the health and safety of all students and felt it was necessary to have setbacks. So again, this bill just says what is fair for new oil and gas facilities, that they have to be set back from public schools to protect our kids and educators, that schools, public schools, should have the same responsibility. In fact, they do have the same responsibility to ensure the protection of our kids and our educators. That's what this bill is about, and it deserves to have a fair hearing on this floor. Thank you.
Colleagues, I am feeling generous today. However, just want to remind folks that the motion is to lay over the bill to September 15th. Senator Lundy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As you just heard the chair say, this is a question of now or never, quite frankly. Now, a discussion about safety, student safety, consistency with laws passed by this body previously. The bill progressed through a debate, a rigorous debate, amendment, and advanced to this chamber for debate. And the question is, do we want to engage in this moment in that portion of the process where we deal with what consistently happens, the unintended consequence of legislation that we pass? The reality is, the question inherent in this bill, and the question of do we want to debate or not, which is what I am arguing at this moment to stay consistent with the chair's requirement, do we want to make sure that schools have the same setback requirement to keep students safe that this body, and I don't know that I completely agreed with it, but this body said you must set back oil and gas development a certain distance from schools. It's just a matter of, do we want to discuss clarifying the law, making it consistent, being intellectually honest with ourselves or not. The argument is this bill raises that issue and would give us the opportunity to debate that. I urge that, in fact, we not lay this bill over, that, in fact, we engage in this moment in the question of student safety, school safety, keeping our communities based on the intellectual choices of this body, a consistency. This bill would raise that issue, give us the opportunity to rationalize and align the laws that we have and we create. But we can only get there if, in fact, we don't lay this bill over. We do have the debate. And so, colleagues, I argue that, in fact, laying this over, even though it is a wonderfully chosen date, even though it would acknowledge the birth of a great member of this body, it is still an inappropriate movement, and we should not, in fact, lay this bill over. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, my previous motion was to have this debate, to send it to the Education Committee, because I felt like maybe there's a path forward here, something we can figure out for this policy to be something everyone is comfortable with. That was not satisfactory. So here we are. I also want to reiterate something I said during our Senatorial 5, which is, I don't know why everyone is so up in arms about September 15th. There's a very good chance we are all going to be here to debate this policy.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 114 to September 15th. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Panetta, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 167?
Senate Bill 167 by Senators Holbert and Bridges and Representative Gray and Larson concerning the regulation of child care centers.
Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 167 lay over until April 5th at the request of the sponsor.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 167 to April 5th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
test for the chair. Did you hear the vote correctly?
That's right.
That's what it comes down to.
That's right. Too bad I'm deaf in my left ear. You know?
Exactly. The noise comes from over here, but you don't hear it.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Panetta, will you please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had under consideration the following bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 143 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading, final passage. Senate Bill 61 laid over until April 1st, 2021, and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 177 and 167 laid over until April 5th, 2021, and retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 114 laid over until September 15th, 2021, and retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment 114 to the committee of the whole?
Amendment 001 to
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Amendment 001, amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
To the amendment, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment simply says to amend the report to show that Senate Bill 21-114 was not laid over and that Senate Bill 21-114 did pass. Members, I'm just going to state again, I think it's extremely important that we have this discussion and that we don't shirk our responsibilities, because this is really truly about ensuring closing a loophole so that we protect kids and that we protect educators.
Is there further discussion regarding Amendment 114? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of Amendment 114 to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? Senators Pedersen, Lee, Danielson, Hansen, Coleman, Hawkes Lewis, Moreno, Story, Winter, Buckner, Rodriguez, Fields, Gonzalez, Colker, Donovan, Bridges, the Majority Leader. Please add the President. Senator Janal. With 16 aye votes, 19 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Amendment 114 is lost. The question before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 143 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 061 laid over until 4/1/21 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 177 and Senate Bill 167 laid over until 4/5/21 and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 114 laid over until 9/15/21 and retaining its place on the calendar. Consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title to SJR 007?
SJR 007 by Senators Rodriguez and Gonzalez and Representatives Valdez A. and Tipper concerning recognition of Cesar Chavez Day and honoring Dolores Huerta.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request Senate Joint Resolution 21-007 be read in its entirety, and I move the bill for the resolution.
Senator Rodriguez, will you please move the resolution as well? Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 21-007.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Resolution 007?
Senate Joint Resolution 007 by Senators Rodriguez and Gonzalez and Representatives Valdez A. and Tipper concerning recognition of Cesar Chavez Day and honoring Dolores Huerta. Whereas Cesar Estrada Chavez was born on March 31st, 1927 on a small farm near Yuma, Arizona and was raised by migrant farm workers. And whereas during the Great Depression, Cesar Chavez's father lost his small farming business and they, like many other families, became migrant workers. They joined some 30,000 workers who followed the crops from Arizona into Southern California. And whereas Cesar Chavez left school after the 8th grade to labor in the fields and vineyards of the Southwest to help support his family. And whereas at the age of 17 in 1944, Cesar Chavez joined the Navy and served his country. And whereas after experiencing years of discrimination and unfair working conditions, Cesar Chavez dedicated his life to improving the plight of farm workers through struggle, sacrifice, and self-denial. And whereas Cesar Chavez formed his own organization in 1962, the National Farm Workers Association, which later became the United Farm Workers of America, UFW, to help farm workers like himself win equal rights and fair treatment. And whereas when recognizing Cesar Chavez, it is only right to recognize the accomplishments of UFW co-founder Dolores Huerta for her work on behalf of farm workers. And whereas Dolores Huerta brought forward a unique voice on behalf of women to ensure all workers have fair representation. And whereas in 1965, Cesar Chavez led a strike of California grape pickers to demand higher wages and urged all Americans to boycott table grapes as a show of support. And whereas Cesar Chavez believed in the principles of nonviolence practiced by Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and used tactics such as boycotts, marches, strikes, and fasts to lead a successful 5-year boycott that gained millions of supporters and new members for farm labor unions across the United States. And whereas by 1970, Cesar Chavez and the UFW had persuaded grape growers to accept union contracts and had successfully organized almost the entire industry. And whereas during a fast in 1972, Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta coined the phrase, "Si se puede," which in English means, yes, it can be done, reflecting their conviction that failure happens only by giving up on nonviolent tactics. And whereas the work of Cesar Chavez was informed by his devout Catholic faith, and he traditionally included images of Our Lady of Guadalupe at marches and demonstrators and led supporters in praying the rosary. And whereas in 1975, Cesar Chavez and the UFW's efforts resulted in the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act, a groundbreaking law protecting the right of farm workers to unionize. And whereas Cesar Chavez tirelessly devoted himself to making all people aware of the struggles of farm workers and their need for better pay and safer working conditions. And whereas Cesar Chavez and the organization he co-founded with Dolores Huerta, the UFW, achieved the following: the first collective bargaining agreement between farm workers and growers in the continental United States, and the first union contracts requiring rest periods, clean drinking water, hand washing facilities, and protective clothing against pesticide exposure, and the first ban on pesticide spraying while workers were in the fields, and the first ban on DDT and other dangerous pesticides, and the first and only performing pension plan for retired farm workers, and the first union contracts regulating safety and sanitary conditions in farm labor camps and banning discrimination in employment and sexual harassment of female workers, and abolition of the use of the infamous short-handed hoe that crippled generations of farm workers, and extension of state coverage under unemployment, disabilities, and worker compensation to farm workers. And whereas on April 23rd, 1993, Cesar Estrada Chavez died peacefully in his sleep in San Luis, Arizona, and whereas in 1994, President Bill Clinton posthumously awarded Cesar Chavez the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. And whereas Cesar Chavez influenced and inspired millions of Americans to seek social justice and civil rights for the poor and disenfranchised in our society, and whereas it is important to continue Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta's legacy of advocating for the rights of agricultural workers, including efforts currently underway, now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 73rd General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the General Assembly, honor a man and woman who devoted their lives to improving the working conditions, safety, and dignity of so many on the day that the entire state observes as Cesar Chavez Day, March 31st, 2021, while recognizing Dolores Huerta.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, please be seated. Thank you for standing for that. Just a privilege for me. A story I want to tell you. I was raised in somewhat of a political family, working on campaigns, and in 1986, as a youngster coming out of high school, I had the opportunity to drive Cesar Chavez around the state and escort him around and listen to him speak and talk about, it was during the grapes boycott and the pesticides being used, and I was an 18-year-old saying why I could be hanging out with my friends and I'm driving this person that I don't know around town. And what missed me as a youngster and as I got older and got to see the work that this man does frames a lot of what I do as I learned, because I didn't realize the honor I got at the time. But I try to frame my policy in looking at the underserved and the underpopulated and what this man did to raise the underserved and the ones who felt voiceless to bring their voice to the table and make movements is really a foundation of what I try to do in policy. And I have a couple quotes that I wanted to put here. It's ironic that those who till the soil, cultivate and harvest the fruits, vegetables, and other foods that fill your tables with abundance have nothing left for themselves. This struck a chord with me just dealing with the COVID virus last year and the people who didn't have the opportunity to stay home and stay safe that still had to go do the work so the rest of us could be home and be safe during what we were dealing with. So I just want to recognize this day. It's an honor for me to be here. My last quote from him is going to be, preservation of one's own culture does not require contempt or disrespect for any other cultures. I just want to thank you guys all for being here, and I'm honored to be a part of this presentation, and I want to keep it short because other people want to speak, but thank you very much.
Senator Hawkins Lewis.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to speak about a line in the resolution, if I could, recognizing Cesar Chavez. It's only right to recognize Dolores Huerta. You see, my mom, Georgia Hawkins Lewis, actually worked with Dolores on immigrant rights issues in the 1980s. They both are from a farming, ranching, mining mountains of northern New Mexico. And Cesar and Dolores would actually come to my church when I was growing up as a kid, St. Anne's in Charlotte. And Dolores would actually stay with my family. She's been such an inspiration to me. And when she founded the Agricultural Workers Association, they were some of the first groups to do voter registration drives and housing work. And it really inspired my family, my mom, to continue that work in the South. And later, when Cesar and Dolores launched the National Farm Workers Association, it was really those organizational skills that she had that really kept that organization going. So I just wanted to share that personal story with you. It's wonderful to see the recognition that Cesar and Dolores have these days. I think Cesar was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize at least 3 different times. And our current president, Joe Biden, has a bust of Cesar Chavez behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. We honor that brave man and courageous woman today, which would have been his 93rd birthday. So thank you, members.
Senator Gonzalez.
Gracias, Madam President. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. That was weak. Buenos dias, y'all. Buenos dias. Órale. Y'all, it's like my favorite time of year because it's Cesar Chavez Day. It's the anniversary of Selena Quintanilla's passing. It's Trans Day of Visibility. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day to be brown. And it's a beautiful day to honor the legacy of those who fought for justice. I want to say just something brief about the importance of solidarity in these times. Because Cesar Chavez was a man who put in the work, driven by faith, driven by a belief in justice. He believed that if you do not have money, if you do not have influence, if you organize enough people, that you can actually make concrete changes in people's lives. And so how did he go about doing that work? He did that by organizing. And he did that through solidarity, by building alliances with folks who oftentimes weren't taken into consideration when decisions were being made. So what he did is organize alongside Larry Itliong and Philip de la Cruz, the leaders of the Filipino Farm Workers Association. This whole like Asian and Latino solidarity thing, we're trying to act like it's new. Nah, man. Our elders have been doing this work for generations. That solidarity, that justice work, y'all, that is what true power looks like. Putting a woman who had 13 kids as his number 2 was unheard of back in the day. And yet Dolores Huerta was like, órale, si se puede. And those are examples that we use here in community to continue that work. The last thing I'll say is this. Dolores and Cesar and Larry and Philip understood the power of story. And so what they did in order to further the boycott is they didn't just go and march 300 miles from Delano to Sacramento. They also put young people on trains, buses, and planes to go across the country to stand outside in front of grocery stores to say, yo, you know those grapes you're about to buy? Let me tell you about the work that I put in order to pick those, and I'm 15 years old. One of those people was Isidoro Jaramillo from right here in Denver, Northsider. Isidoro dedicated his whole life to justice, and this man ended up being the #1 volunteer on my campaign. So, Izzy, if you're watching, what's up, Holmes? What I will say is this. Cesar Chavez organized his life dedicated to the principles of bending systems towards justice. And he also said, and I'll leave y'all with this quote, "You are never strong enough that you don't need help." So as we continue on in this work, as we navigate multiple crises, the pandemic, the racial reckoning, the economic crisis, the climate crisis, so many things that are pulling at us and sowing division, discord, and disunity, let us live by Cesar's principles. You're never strong enough that you don't need help. You can always reach across the aisle, reach across and build solidarity, reach across and do the work towards justice. Thank y'all, colleagues.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam President. And colleagues, I rise in support of Senate Joint Resolution 7. I don't normally come and speak on resolutions. However, this one's particularly important to me because so much of the work that I've done in this building and my own values as a person are informed by the work of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. I've actually had the incredible fortune to have dinner with Dolores Huerta, and I can't tell you what it's like to sit at a dinner table with a living legend like her. And the work that they did to lift so many people from poverty, to give them basic workplace protections, to be able to just spend time and to learn from all the work that she did was such an inspiration. I don't normally share, but my family's history is also tied very closely to the work of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta. My dad was born in 1936 in Asherton, Texas, and for a large period of his life, he was also a migrant laborer. And he would tell me stories about the working conditions. And thankfully, despite never even having gone to high school, with only a middle school education, my dad was able to get a job doing substation maintenance for Xcel Energy, joined the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and was able to have a living wage for his family. That living wage allowed me to go to college, to go to Georgetown University, a Jesuit university, and to learn about the values that the Catholic Church stands for: social justice, working for the poor and disenfranchised. So much of my life stems from the work that Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta did. So colleagues, I appreciate your time hearing this resolution today. I appreciate that it is an annual recognition and acknowledgement that we make to these two incredible individuals. The work continues. There's still so much more that we can do for not only for all workers across Colorado, but particularly those that provide the produce and the food that we enjoy every day. Thank you, colleagues.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, colleagues. Today we acknowledge a truly amazing man. Cesar Chavez, along with Dolores Huerta, took on the fight for agricultural workers' rights. For those who were responsible for feeding this nation, yet were mistreated, exploited, and abused. The things he fought for were basic human rights. To have a minimum wage guarantee for a hard day's work, to have water breaks, to have a union so that workers could stand up for themselves without facing horrifying retribution. These workers endured other abuses, being sprayed with pesticides, which resulted in serious health issues, including babies being born without limbs. They were raped and sexually harassed. They were forced to live in terrible living conditions. There was rampant human trafficking, and when they tried to organize for their rights, they faced violent retribution from law enforcement and the growers. And so Cesar and Dolores fought. They fought with strikes, boycotts, and activism. They fought for the basic human rights for workers who broke their backs putting food on America's table. So today we honor this man's legacy, his contributions to this great nation that we live in. And this year, here in Colorado, we have before us the opportunity to do so much more than just honor Cesar Chavez with our voices today. We have the opportunity to use the power we were given by the people of Colorado to lift up tens of thousands of farm workers here in Colorado. Because like it or not, the reality here in Colorado is that agricultural workers still do not have some of the basic human rights and the protections that Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta fought for. Many farm workers in Colorado are not guaranteed the minimum wage. Agricultural workers are not paid overtime. They are not guaranteed food breaks or cold, clean water. They still experience sexual harassment and fierce retribution if they dare to come forward to advocate for themselves. In fact, they're still barred from joining a union in order to help them advocate for workplace safety and better pay. These are the same things that Mr. Chavez fought for 50 years ago. And here in Colorado in 2021, we are being asked to live up to the values that say those who labor in the fields to put food on our table deserve the human rights protections afforded nearly every single other worker in the state. We cannot honor Cesar Chavez without acknowledging that Colorado is decades behind other states, not just California, but states like Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Kansas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Hawaii, Maryland, New York, Idaho, Kansas, Louisiana, Maine, New Jersey, and Oregon, and Wisconsin in ending exclusion of farm workers from labor protections. So on this Cesar Chavez Day in 2021, decades after the work Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and thousands of workers who fought and bled, this day I stand before you and call upon this legislature and our governor to do more than simply say we honor Cesar Chavez. We have the opportunity to lift up tens of thousands of workers in our economy who have been left behind, to be a voice for the voiceless, to stand up for people who are often ignored in our society, who are too often exploited by an economic system that deliberately excludes them, to recognize the humanity and dignity of the thousands of workers trying to make an honest day's pay. Here is our chance for us to go to bat for a group of folks who don't have a lot of power inside this building, for us to say to them that our values call on us to recognize their worth no matter what. Here in the Colorado State Senate in 2021, we have the opportunity to pass the Farm Worker Bill of Rights. This is our chance, ours in the legislature and for Governor Polis, to fight against injustices and indignities as Mr. Chavez fought against them many decades ago. To do exactly what we honor this man for today with the observance of the holiday that bears his name. Let's not squander this chance. Thank you so much.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam President. I wasn't going to come down here and talk because I'm a full supporter of what Mr. Cesar Chavez did in the ag community and the work he's done. But to turn this into a political now advocacy for a specific bill has made it a challenge for me, because there were statements made that just simply aren't true. Many and thousands of workers still being abused. People unable to unionize. Well, in California, when they did unionize, what is there left? 1% of the farm workers left that are unionized? That's not neither here nor there, because the conversation should remain about what Mr. Chavez did. And we're all proud of the work he did. What I will tell you is to keep in mind, if we're going to talk about a bill that's coming through the legislature rather than a resolution, you have to ask yourself a question. Why do so many of these workers come back year after year after year for 20, 25, and 30 years and then bring their children back to work in the same place? Are there some things that agriculture wants to work on? Absolutely. But I can tell you, agriculture as a whole continues to need good workers just like any other industry. And as they search for those workers, and when they have those workers, they pay them, they take care of them. I mean, there's people out there right now that provide housing, provide vehicles, and still pay over minimum wage. I'm not going to talk long. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stay focused on what this resolution is about. And this resolution is about a wonderful man that did good work. Let's not turn it into the political football
that it seems that it's going to be going. I support the resolution. I support the work that Mr. Chavez did, and I urge you to support that work as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
We'll vote on it first, and then we'll have a preview of your next motion. Any further discussion on Senate Joint Resolution 7? Are there any no votes on Senate Joint Resolution 7? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, Senate Joint Resolution 7 is adopted. What a surprise, Senator Rodriguez.
Having full confidence on how that was going to go, I respectfully, secondly, request the roll call be added as sponsor.
Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Resolution 7. Message from the governor.
Tuesday, March 30th, Colorado Senate. Honorable members of the Colorado Senate, pursuant to the authority vested in the office of the Governor of the State of Colorado, I have the honor to inform you that I've approved and filed with the Secretary of State the following act. Senate Bill 24, Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day, approved on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 at 4:31 p.m.
Announcements. Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Members of the Senate Appropriations Committee, we have an action-packed morning lined up for 8 o'clock over in LSBB. We will be hearing Senate Bill 11, 15, 38, 64, 72, 82, 119, 128, 134, 136, 173, 178, 196, and that's it. Simple agenda. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Senate Appropriations, 8 o'clock tomorrow across the street.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam President. The Senate Education Committee will be meeting upon adjournment. We will be hearing Senate Bill 185. We will be meeting at 12:05 in 10 minutes. Thank you.
How about 11:15?
How about 11:05?
How about 11:15, Senator?
11:15.
That's thank you, Senator. Senator Liston? Who wants to go? Senator Janal, Senator Rodriguez? Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. The Business, Labor, and Technology Committee will be at 1:30 in room 352. A few sets of appointment reviews and one bill, Senate Bill 21-060, will be heard today. Thank you.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Madam President. The Senate Health and Human Services Committee will meet today at 1:30. We are going to hear Senate Bill 137, Senate Bill 181, 1130, and 1123. That's at 1:30 in room 357.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I've checked with the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader, and I asked to be excused next Wednesday until about 10 o'clock. I'll be in sometime about 10 o'clock. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Liston. That will be noted. Thank you. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judiciary Committee will be meeting on adjournment. Chair. I apologize. I'm sorry. Madam President, the Judiciary...
If I had thin skin, I wouldn't have gotten this far, Senator. You are fine.
Upon adjournment, 15 minutes in new room 352. Thank you. We'll be
Thank you,
hearing
Senator Lee.
3 bills.
Further announcements. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have some resolutions and the like to read across. You do not need to be here. Madam President, I move that the Senate recess until 11:30 a.m.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, we will stand in recess till 11:30.